I'd like just to introduce Father Brendan McManus here for our 5-day mission. Brendan's going to be leading that. Brendan is a Jesuit priest based now in Belfast. Brendan, we're delighted to have you with us this evening. Welcome back to Newcastle. How does it feel to be back with us here?
Thank you, Colin. It's lovely to be back here in Newcastle. You see that drive down from Belfast and you see the mountains and you see the sea, and it was a beautiful evening today, and I was thinking, this is going to be great. This is going to be just lovely. I love the mountains. I love the sea. I love being back in Newcastle and being here. So thanks for inviting me.
Brendan, you have a sort of an unusual journey into the priesthood. Can you tell us just a little bit about your journey?
Sure. I think in my life, I've had 3 different careers. I started off, I was a farmer back home in Fermanagh, where my dad had a farm, and he got sick when I was about 19. So I had to run the farm for 2 years and keep it going. So that was quite an experience, but I didn't like it very much. So I went back to college and studied, and then I worked in the computer industry in England for about 5 or 6 years, working in interface design, like for an American computer company. And again, that was a terrific experience, great training and lots of travel and everything, but I didn't find it fulfilling at all. So I packed it in and eventually joined the priesthood, joined the Jesuits, and ended up then back home in Dublin and going through the 10 years of Jesuit training there.
Sure, so you've quite a lot of life experience, Brendan, that you brought into the Jesuits. What attracted you particularly about the Jesuits, would you say?
Well, you know the way sometimes you don't choose something, but it chooses you. So I just happened to be, I was in Australia at the time, in fact, and I was in a Jesuit parish, and I went to Mass one day, and there was this Jesuit priest, and just really charismatic, and I just found him just a great guy, and I started talking to him, and we would meet regularly, and he was helping me just with my own life and my vocation story. So I just happened to fall into it. It wasn't as if I evaluated different options. It just kind of chose me in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the Jesuits have a great reputation of being on the prophetic edge, certainly of life in the church, pushing the boundaries right back. And obviously the whole thing of discernment is a very important word today, and spiritual direction. And you've a lot of various ministries as a Jesuit. What sort of ministries have you been involved in?
Again, I've been involved in a number of things. I worked in media and editing, and I was the editor of a Jesuit electronic magazine. I was a school chaplain in Galway for a number of years. I worked in youth ministry in Dublin on Gardner Street for quite a few years. I was in South America studying theology there for about 4 years. And now I work in Belfast. I work in spiritual direction, which is this ministry of one-to-one accompanying people in terms of their prayer, their spiritual life, and especially about decisions that they have to make, big decisions. And again, I know from my own experience what that's like, facing a big decision, and how do you make a good decision? How do you weigh up all the different options? How do you weigh up all the different kind of movements inside yourself? Especially you feel pulled in different directions, and how do you know what is true? I guess that would be one of the big things. How do you know where God is calling you?
Sure. And I know you had a very powerful experience in your own life, and you went off on a particular journey, a walk, the Camino, to Santiago de Compostela. Can you tell us just a bit of what motivated you to take on such a journey like that?
Sure. Again, this was another huge life event that I never saw coming, never asked for. I found myself, after my brother's suicide, trying to pick up the pieces for that. And I think suicide has such a shocking impact on a family and on individuals, and on me in particular. So I was trying to find a way of dealing with that. And I had tried all sorts of other things, counselling and support groups, but there was still something missing for me. So I decided I would walk the Camino, because I love walking, and it's just the obvious thing to do, because it gives you time and it gives you space, and you're out in nature, and you're just there working through stuff, with your body and with your head. So I found it enormously healing, and I had this extraordinary experience at the end, where I just was given the opportunity to. I had this little ritual with an item of my brother's clothing. I was able to let go of what was kind of holding me back, and letting go was so liberating, and I came back transformed from that experience. It was just enormously healing, and God definitely touched me there. So and that's the book that I wrote is about that, the journey, about what happened. And it's all about discernment that you mentioned there, about how to make good decisions when you're in tight spots. So sometimes I was uh, sometimes I was injured, sometimes I was, felt like giving up, and you're trying to ask God, what should I do here and how should I work through this?
Mm-hmm.
So that eventually, after a whole series of adventures, some of them quite funny, kind of hilarious, just off the wall sort of stuff, but eventually it brought me out to the end of the Camino at the coast, and then this little ritual, the burning of the t-shirt, and then it changed my life, I would say, easily. And it's brought me into a new ministry as well, which is this whole ministry about suicide bereavement and trying to help people who've been bereaved. So I work closely with the Bethany group. So I would often go to a parish and give a talk, obviously, about my own story, invite other people to share their stories as well, and try to help people to move on and try to hear what's helped other people as well. So I have another little book which just came out last week from the Messenger office. It's called Surviving Suicide Bereavement, and it's just a little practical guide to the steps or sometimes the challenges or the pitfalls that are along the way, because people get caught up in these things. Suicide bereavement is different to other bereavements. Things like, this is a classic one, where is my brother, my loved one? Are they with God or are they lost? This desperate, desperate questions about where are people, where is God in this, and this thing about a God of mercy, I think, which is one of the key things I'll be talking about the next couple of days. A God of mercy would see that differently, would be there to assure people about where their loved ones are, and especially that these things that we can often take as insolvable, so like suicide or death, but there is a way through those, and there is a resolution in God of some of these huge issues, which can bring people enormous comfort and joy, in a sense.
So we really do have a packed 5 days ahead. Tomorrow after morning mass and adoration, we meet for coffee and scones, and then we have a special pilgrimage to the Door of Mercy in Belfast, visiting both Clonard and St Patrick's. Then mass tomorrow evening in Bryansford, and then of course on Saturday after morning mass in the afternoon we have our opportunity to watch the movie The Way, and then we're into all of our weekend masses. Brendan will be speaking at all of those. And then, of course, on Monday, a packed day, both with the schools, mass, and then in the evening, our beautiful Teze prayer service, a moment really of quiet and reflection, and finishing then on Tuesday with a visit to the housebound of our community, and concluding with a very special penitential service. Everyone is more than welcome.